This is TWiT.
A sweeping investigation by cybersecurity firm BitSight, reported by 404 Media, reveals that more than 40,000 internet-connected cameras, from office security systems to baby monitors and even hospital patient rooms, are accessible to anyone with a browser and the right IP address. Many don't require hacking. They're simply left unsecured, often using default settings or login credentials. And the result? It's a staggering breach of privacy across homes and businesses and public spaces, with footage surfacing on the dark web and being used in real-world espionage and cyber attacks. So in looking at this report, this was kind of wild to see the number. BitSight identified 40,000 plus live camera feeds open to the public. I mentioned hospitals, offices, data centers, jewelry stores, clinics, bird feeders. That one maybe makes a lot of sense. But it was just as often found in a large organization as it was found in a home, with, of course, the most egregious examples being the cameras they found in hospitals and clinics that were actually monitoring patients. In this research, the report identified the most exposed devices in the US, followed by Japan, and there were camera feeds found across all 50 US states. Even some protected cameras were also able to be accessed. And that meant that even though they had these protections in place that were supposed to keep the camera from being able to be accessed, it didn't matter, because the researchers had ways of getting to those cameras. And I kind of want to talk about that, because the research conducted was done so in a way to kind of mimic the ability of anyone with even the slightest bit of tech know-how. It wasn't any special hacking or trying to, insert some packet over the internet and hack into the system, or getting someone to plug in a flash drive. No. In many cases, it just took an IP address. And in some cases, it doesn't even take that, because there are websites and services out there that let you search for internet accessible devices that people have in their homes or elsewhere. And so with all of that, they kind of looked into how to find things, looking at cameras that operated over HTTP. And in many cases, those would have a built-in web interface. They could then do something as simple as typing after the URL /out.jpg, because a lot of these cameras have similar firmware, and so they work a lot alike, and they output these little screenshots of what they're seeing. And if you get enough of those, you can really start to get a picture of what is going on. And then there were also the real-time streaming protocol cameras that are more likely used in kind of professional systems. And those also have very common paths, like live.sdp and /mpeg4. And then the researchers were able to take that data and turn it into a series of images or video to be able to get that. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about what the researchers found in terms of how people were using these and everything else. But I wanted to get your early impression of this, Jen, because I know, as someone who has been interested in the smart home, I regularly hear from people who say, why would you put any of that stuff in your house? It's going to, result in you getting hacked, or someone's going to be watching you. What is your kind of response to that in general, and then your reaction to hearing about all of these cameras?
So my response to the first question is choose wisely. There are cameras that you can buy that are far more secure, and there are cheap cameras that you buy off the web for $30 that are going to end up on someone's collection of streaming video cameras that people sit and watch and eat popcorn and enjoy seeing into people's homes. And this is not new. So it is scary and awful to read this report. But if you even click into the report, it says in 2023, we found the same thing. And in 2022, I mean, this has been going on for years. What is scary is that it is still going on. Like, we should have learned, people should have learned, companies should have learned, this shouldn't still be happening. But it is common, and it has been happening for a long time. Often when I talk to security researchers, and the question I always ask is, what is the biggest threat or concern users should have about using smart devices in their homes? Because it's a question I get asked a lot, not just around cameras, but around hacking in general, because, there's the whole concern around like DDoS attacks or people getting into your networks and controlling your smart appliances. And so there's a lot of concerns around connecting devices in your home to the internet. And yes, this is something that has been happening for a long time. And what they often, the answer that they always give me is, oh, well, security cameras are your biggest concern, because there are literally websites you can go onto and just join and see live feeds from people's nurseries and their gardens and wherever else they've put security cameras. I mentioned gardens because one of my top tips with security cameras is keep them outside.
Yes.
But
Same,
yeah, baby cams, obviously there's a lot of use cases, pet cams when you're away from home. There are reasons that people want these devices. But in terms of your second question there, what can be done about it? You need to buy cameras with good security track records. If you notice, the two protocols that they mention in this report are HTTP, which is missing a very crucial letter from it. Do you know which one that is?
Where's the S? For goodness sake, why is it not encrypted?
Thank you. And then RTSP. Now, RTSP is not as bad, but it's the way you use it. It's actually quite a common tool in smart home cameras to stream to local storage. But if you're streaming to local storage, you're not going on the internet. You're still somewhat vulnerable, because if someone hacks into your network, they can, it's more of an open channel. But hopefully you have much stronger protections on your network. And this is all about stronger protections. And this is all about the devices that you choose to put into your home. Most of the reputable security cameras you buy from reputable firms, reputable companies that cost more than $30 most of the time. You can get them on deals, but that come with subscriptions as well. That's sometimes considered a downside. They put money, time, effort into securing either end-to-end encryption or encryption in transit and at rest. Which is what most cloud security services use, which encryption in transit and at rest, which means that it can't be hacked into as it's moving or when it's not being used. It is accessible to the company at some point so that they can process it for things like facial recognition or package alerts or those kind of features that some people value security cameras for. But yeah, that's, just don't buy cheap cameras off the internet. And I don't know I think the issue with some of these large organizations, the hospitals and the others that are sort of mentioned in this report, are using probably old technology.
Yes,
they haven't updated
absolutely.
their cameras in years because it would cost a fortune to reinvest in that technology. And if it's working for them now, why would they change it? And they probably aren't alerted to these types of reports very often. So yeah, I'm sure my local hospital wouldn't really have spent much time on these sites and figured out what's going on. So yeah, it's scary and it's bad, but it's not new. And it's been going on for a long time. And that's the scariest thing, is why this is still happening.
Absolutely. I mean, one of you very much hit on it. Legacy and abandoned cameras are still streaming online, and that was not a lot, but that was some of what BitSight saw, particularly the legacy side. And here is what I really liked, something that they talked about that I think people aren't thinking of first and foremost, because when you hear about your camera being accessed or a camera being accessed, your immediate thought is privacy, right? Someone's watching me through my camera. That's the bad thing. And that's the extent of it. And honestly, that is enough to sort of pay attention to this report. But let's talk about businesses who, as you said, maybe you're going, okay, they can see people walking through my store. I'm not going to update these cameras. They talk about what else is at risk here. With office cameras, you can suddenly expose confidential materials, employee activity. So, you're suddenly gaining access to papers that are talking about the company's profit or whatever it happens to be. Retail cameras that are accessed will help burglars time thefts or perhaps scope merchandise. In fact, there was one instance where they were able to look through and see a Porsche showroom that had some very fancy car in it. Factory feeds could reveal proprietary processes to competitors. And all of those are also reasons why you would want to have your camera situation figured out. And yes, so much of the time, what they found was just that people were not changing the default passwords, or if they didn't need remote access, but they left it on. So if you don't need remote access, as you were just talking about, make it a local area network situation if you're going to be doing that RTMP, unless you do need to access it from external, and maybe consult a professional. Use firewalls, VPNs, of course, for corporate systems. You can also go about checking your own camera. Just hop on a different network and try to access it, or use one of these sites. I'm not going to mention any specific site or service. It's very easy to find that does publish this information and, shows these cameras that are kind of online. It's honestly not too difficult to get this sorted if you are taking a little bit of time and a little bit of attention to figure it out. And you do those things that Jen talked about and that this report talks about of, if you're going to do this, invest a little bit in it so that you aren't getting the cheapo devices that aren't going to be as concerned about security and the blowback therein, and then go from there. And when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about a company that is a bigger company in the sense that when blowback was initiated, the company kind of had to repair from that. Thanks so much for watching this little chunk of Tech News Weekly. If you'd like to get the full episode, well, head over to twit.tv/TNW. There you'll find buttons you can click or tap to subscribe to the entire show in audio and video formats. Or just look in the description. We've got links down there as well.